Good morning, everyone. I want to maybe for a few minutes just to close the story of Hagar and Sarah and Abraham. Now that you have studied the material and also had a sermon in play yesterday, any afterthoughts about the material and the purpose of bringing this trio into your attention? Any?
I guess when I used to read that story, I mean, I really thought Sarah was a kind of mousy. I don't think she was so mousy.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why she was selected to be the matriarch. That's how we pray to her. When we pray, we say, God of Sarah, God of Rebecca, God of Rachel, God of Leah. So she definitely made it, and she's first. It's interesting that sometimes we had Leah before Rachel, and in a new prayer book we have Rachel before Leah. I mean, those are also interesting characters too.
Yeah, you do a combination of Hebrew text and
yeah, so we have, for the next round, we have more mothers, matriarchs, and their dirty business to talk about. Okay, you felt good as Sarah?
Did I feel good as her?
What do you feel about Sarah now?
Well, there's a lot of things to feel about Sarah, but there's just a lot of things to feel about a woman during that time period.
Oh, yeah.
They did all the work, they did all the,
They gave birth?
they gave all the birth, and they had to put up with the...
Nothing changed.
Yeah, they had to the second wife, and the third wife, the fourth wife, the concubines, and be good-natured all the time, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I think Sarah wrote that in herself, though, where she said that she had always been considered beautiful. I think she wrote that.
It's very interesting because it leads to the story about Esther. So it says in the book of Esther that the king Ahasuerus, that was his name. By the way, I'll tell you what the meaning is in Hebrew. You know what the meaning of the king Ahasuerus is? The one that has constantly headaches. That's his name. So I want to make sure, because he was always drunk. The entire story of, yeah, everyone was drunk. I want to put this caveat here to make sure that you realize that it is possible the story is there for all kind of other purposes, the book of Esther. It's a very strange book. And what I did today, and you'll be surprised, I brought you some material from the Apocrypha. And we'll get there when we finish a little bit with the book of Esther. So you have two kinds of materials in front of you. You have, of course, the book of Esther, which please read this before next Sunday, because next Sunday there will be a presentation by our esteemed doctor about the book of Esther. So you need to read the material. We're not going to be able to cover this material now in this short time, but this is the book of Esther. And then you have some commentary about the book of Esther in a Jewish text. And then the third piece of paper is from 4 different sections from the Apocrypha called Esther. So just to explain to you again the issue of the Apocrypha, I think it's important. Apocrypha is all the material that never made it to the New Testament and Old Testament. So you know yourself. You know how you decide when to move to a new home is when you can't carry anymore the shit of what's in the house. So it's something very interesting. Apocrypha is basically all the material that didn't make it to the canons, both the Old Testament and New Testament. Now, what can be some of the reasons that the material is collected and put aside without going into the main holy scriptures that we all love? What can be the reason?
The publisher said it's too long.
Yeah.
Definitely. First of all, there was too much material. Also, sometimes you didn't know the authenticity of the author. So it's very dangerous for a religion that is trying to put their holy scriptures together to suddenly allow for the window to be open and to have materials that you don't know who wrote it. What else?
So they're kind of like backstories, they just make it more interesting.
Uh,
They may have happened, they may not have happened.
Yeah, it is.
all blends in.
By the way, it is possible some of the material that was not accepted actually was written in the same time of the other material that was accepted. And so it's very interesting to see what the nuances, why the changes. And
Some of it's dogmatically contradictory. So.
totally, yeah. Let's talk about politics now. Some of it is completely in contradiction to the main line of what the authors or what the committee, by the way, it was a committee, it was this kind of a room. People were sitting here with different manuscripts on each table, and they were talking, yes, no, let's read, why, what are we putting, what are we taking off? I mean, it was a lot more exciting than Watergate. A lot more exciting. I don't know if it's going to be as excited as the Trump gate. But anyway, but this is how this works. And the rabbis of the 1st and 2nd century had opinions about this.
And they're all men.
Oh man, I'm sorry. It's really not my fault. If I was there, it would be a whole different collection of people. But that's what we have, and the issue is to start giving ourselves permission to study the Apocrypha. I mean, it's actually forbidden. Forbidden, for many generations, it was forbidden to look into that material because, God forbid, it will poison our mind, the mind of the worshippers. So we didn't have the material. Finally, now you have 3 huge volumes that were done with every volume of all the material in the Apocrypha, which is fascinating. Yeah.
So do we read it and just determine for ourselves what we
No. It was done scholarly. So you know exactly when it was written. You know who the author more or less, and you read it as actually a supplement. I still think that the main books that we need to study is what we got, but I think we are encouraged definitely to look and to see and to compare and see the spirit of the writing, and then ask the question, why was this material rejected? I think it's fascinating. It's like a detective story. And you'll see today the difference between the book of Esther and the Apocrypha on the book of Esther. And you will definitely, I'll put it there, and I will ask you to try to figure out what happened. It's very clear, the difference, and why this material was not accepted, but there is a surprise. You'll see that later. You already learned, what did you learn already from yesterday, from the sermon about the book of Esther? Who is missing in the book of Esther? God. You'll see today in the Apocrypha that God is all over the place. So, what's going on? Even before we go into the material. Why would the book of Esther, the original book of Esther, the one that we study, have no mention of God? And why the Apocrypha, the whole story of Esther, is full of God? Praying to God, Esther praying to God, Mordecai praying to God, the full language of prayer, including the systematic acknowledging of God as God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I mean, you have traditional approach to God. It's there in the Apocrypha. What do you think can be? Come on, it's all open for guests.
Well, it's more spiritual.
It's more spiritual. I mean, the people that wrote, maybe the person or few people that wrote those additional material to the book of Esther, maybe they were not comfortable with what? How is it possible that they will allow, there was a debate, why would the book of Esther be part of the canon if God is not mentioned? It is possible that there were some individuals that wanted to mend that piece, and wrote the book as if God is very active in the book.
It seems that way when you read the book.
Seems what?
That God is active. I mean,
Actually,
well, I mean, it did to me, how could they be doing this without thinking of God too?
it is possible that there was a reason to create one book that what? What is the name Esther? Esther. Esther in Hebrew doesn't mean only the queen and that woman. Esther means the hiding of a face. The hiding of a face. So this is one of the books, the only book where God is hidden. And it's hidden purposefully because who are the main actors? Mordecai, Esther, Haman. I mean, they are the villains and they're the heroes, and maybe it's not so bad to think about in moments, because we know there is a theology of God, hidden face. There are moments in our lives, there are maybe more than moments, where we have challenge in what? In recognizing, in seeing, in understanding where God is. So the philosophy, for example, after the Holocaust, the philosophy of the hidden God, the theology of the hidden God was pretty much vibrant. Where was God? I mean, we also have answers to this now, theological answers. From God was not there to God was cremated with the rest of the people in the crematoriums. I mean, so you have a wide range of answers. But it is possible that this book was there purposefully without God's name because there was a need to give us some strength in times when we have difficulty in discovering God in our lives, to maybe allow for some time for us to act on our own, knowing that God is there, but not active in the same way we imagine God needs to be active. I don't know, that's very encouraging. You know, places where we need to roll our sleeves and do the work ourselves, maybe there's a time to stop praying because, by the way, Moses is standing in front of the water, praying to God. There's a midrash that says, a man by the name of Nachshon saw Moses praying and nothing happening. He started walking toward the water, and when the water got to his neck, that's when the water parted. And God telling to Moses, how long are you going to pray? Do something. So we have this teaching in our, and by the way, that doesn't at all diminishes who God is. But knowing that I'm a partner with God and there are times that God expects us to act maybe more than we do, knowing that He's going to do His part. Oh, there was a voice of a woman, so she. Yesterday you heard the voice of a woman speaking as a God, so perfect. Okay, so we'll get to this material a little bit later. So, yeah.
How do you, and this may be a discussion for another day, but how, when you envision these men sitting around who want to encourage the other people to follow what they feel is the true path.
Okay.
Same
So what is the question?
So,
You actually described exactly what happened.
my head hurts, that's what happened. Because it gets all back into the whole thing of human beings wrote the Bible. Where do you go with that?
Where do you go?
This story is very interesting, that the one that was not included involved a lot of mention of God, and the one that was included doesn't.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the rabbis sitting around the room, trying to decide what's in and what's out, I wonder what encouraged them to go this direction.
What encourages is their time. I mean, so it was written for that time, for that purpose. Now, what is the purpose? I mean, think about the rabbis with the collapse of the temple in the year 70 CE. Those are the gatekeepers. Those are the most important people that allowed for all of us to exist now as religious people. But the question is, what do we do with this material in 2017?
Right.
And I always felt permission, if I'm following that tradition, and those are my books and your books, that we are required in every generation to be a gatekeeper for the generation that exists now. So what is the meaning of the book of Esther for our time? Oh my God. Last night in London, driving over people that just came out of the mosque. What's the difference between this and what Haman in the story of Esther wanted to do to the Jews? So we need constantly to remember the sentence that comes out of Egypt. In every generation, one needs to see himself or herself as if they left Egypt. This is what motivates us. In our Passover Haggadah, that sentence repeats itself many times. That you're not just living in that generation, you're living in this generation. So what is the contribution? As a result of the knowledge you have about the text, both New Testament, Old Testament, Quran, other holy texts, what do you do with this? When we are frozen and stagnated is when we don't allow ourselves to interpret it to our times. And you have to be careful, of course, because some of the gatekeepers are deceiving. How do you trust which gatekeeper? What do you do with this? I mean, it's complicated. Hey, but it's so exciting at the same time. What do you do with this? That's why I ask you how you feel as Sarah this morning. I mean, getting into the character of Sarah, presenting it, knowing the text in the Old Testament, and what is Sarah today? Who is Sarah today? I mean, Sarah exists today in our midst, like every other character in the Bible. Frail, broken, married to the wrong person.
A lot of years.
I mean, this is what makes the Bible so alive. The Bible becomes alive and full of meaning when we enter into the stories.
And yet, there's people in this world that look at the Bible and they say, this is the Word of God, and this is...
I think it's a great loss.
Taking it just verbatim.
Yeah, it's a great loss for those people. I think it's a great loss. Yes?
Within the rabbinical tradition, in early Christianity, and perhaps still, a synod or a council would determine this is the correct belief, and what wasn't there was formally declared a heresy.
Yeah.
With all the...
That's why those Gospels are being discovered every year. I wait every year to discovery of a permission for a new Gospel to come out. You know, just when was it? The Gospel of Judah came out. Hello? What is that all about?
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is, within
Judaism.
Within Judaism, this becomes apocrypha, but what is it as awful of a thing as a heretic would have been treated in 5th century Christianity? I mean, were people being...
Nowadays, no.
No, at the
Oh.
time of this, was it also?
Well, they were hidden. No one saw them. I mean, some of those books appeared, they were not available. By the way, even the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, there were only few of them available. Not everyone really knew what is written there. There were scholarly group of people, a class of rabbis, that were the interpreters. But some of the material around the table was only known to the people that sat around the table. And some of this was hidden. Some of this ended up, the Qumran discovery, those scrolls that they discovered in the Judean desert in an accident. There was a simple shepherd that was throwing stones to the cave and heard broken vessels, jars. So things were hidden purposefully from the rest of the people. Knowledge was not think about how much more we know now than 2 days ago about everything.
But hidden, not destroyed.
Never destroyed. That's what it is. We definitely have in the mentions of books in the Bible that we don't have. They don't exist. There is a book, for example, that is mentioned in the Bible, and the rest of it is written in the book of the Wars of God. We don't know where the book is. We don't have it in the Apocrypha.
But it's almost as if somebody might be thinking, if God wants us to know, somebody will find it. You know?
I love that.
It's going to become important if he wants it to be important.
Wow.
Maybe.
No, it is possible also that it's lost. The other option is the book doesn't exist. Okay.
But then you get to think, who was the person that took it and hid it? Did all of them get together and say, we're gonna keep this away from them? But
Not hidden, stored. I will use the word stored, it's better.
Okay.
I don't want to imply any kind of criminal activities on the part of the rabbis.
But did all of them get together and decide, this is not going to go in this, but we're going to store it?
So the name of the person that was the head it's attributed to Ezra.
Okay.
Ezra the scribe, Ezra and Nehemiah, remember those 2 books that no one reads, but they're there. We should one day read books that no one reads from, Everyone reads the 5 books, but then there's so many other beautiful books that are worthwhile reading. Anyway, so there is the Ezra the scribe that, according to tradition, Jewish tradition, he's the one that was the head of the Sanhedrin, the head of the 70 people that met and in committees and groups, maybe without the cookies. Thank you. And I had to work on this. So it's a sign for him. Okay, yes.
One more real quick.
Yeah.
With the story of Esther, when we wrote it for our Sunday school kids, I guess we played fast and loose because we recognized that God wasn't in the story, and we talked about Esther then wondering what she was supposed to do and relying on Mordecai because he was older and more learned, and then going within herself to meditate, which is
Beautiful.
not in the text at all.
There was
So
not.
how do you
What did you do with the sex?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. What age was it? I love what you did with this. Excuse me. I think it's beautiful what you did. This relying on each other, Mordecai. By the way, Mordecai, it's not Mordecai, it's Marduk, the Persian god. So the whole story of Esther is a rebellion against the existence of the Jews in Persia. Esther is Ishtar. At the same time that it's the hidden face of God, it's also the goddess of Persia named Ishtar. So that's what's going on. It's a plot, it's a play about the miserable time the Jews had in the under the Persian exile. We also made out of it a holiday. It was brilliant. Yeah, it shows you the level of holiness on the book of Esther. You know what? It's there. It's not as sacred. Not all the books always have sacred material. They are sacred, but it's a play. It is possible. By the way, you'll discover in the Apocrypha that it's actually a dream of Mordechai. Never happened. Are you guys okay with it? Who cares if it never happened? It's a good story. Let's do something with this. So it's a dream. In Apocrypha, it appears as a dream of Mordechai. One day, he dreamt about this. And look what we did with this. You had a play that you had to rewrite. We have a holiday of Purim. I love that holiday. By the way, Purim comes from, Pur in Hebrew is the lot that Haman casts. So it comes from, Pur is a Persian word and Hebrew word now that comes as a lottery. That's what he did. He cast a lot and decided to annihilate the Jews because that's what the lot showed. So what do? We do with terrible anti-Semitic story, we made it into a play. That's how we cope with this shit. I mean, what else we have to do? Look at what we do with Purim. We take a story that talks about the possible annihilation of the Jewish people, and we make it into a fun, joyous, crazy holiday. I loved it because my costumes, there's a collection of 28 pictures of my costumes in Temple Israel. One day I have to put it together to show you. I was such a beautiful, gorgeous blonde. I was also the Wizard of Oz because my last name Azriel, so we did the Oz. We did all kind of crazy stuff. And you know what? It's a great teaching because this is the only day during the year that we Jews are allowed to be someone else. The only day that we're allowed to put costumes on is Purim, because you're never supposed to put costumes on. You have to be who you are. That's also a lesson for the kids about the masks in our lives and how we deceive people. I mean, you can go, from the book of Esther, you can go into 100,000 different angles to teach the lesson. That's how we have to do. We have to be constantly creative in the interpretation. That's why there's so many books of commentary about every book of the Bible. So, the book in, the short story is, who can tell me the story? The story is in the king of Persia, the one that has a headache all the time, because he begins the book with inviting everyone to a banquet. What is his mistake? Inviting. Who did he invite and requested from her? The wife, Vashti. Vashti, the wife. And he asked her to appear naked. So actually, there's a lot of women voice in the book written by men. This is a women lib, already in the kingdom of Ahasuerus. She refuses to come. He, of course, beheads her or does whatever he does. And then he is in search of women to be the queen. and the interesting, intriguing piece is that who comes? Esther. She came for a purpose. Can you imagine a Jewish woman marrying a Persian king? I mean, what kind of a twisted mind wrote this book? She will have sex with him? What kind of food she ate in the palace? That's why Jews are, So you see the commentary in the book, was there kosher food available in Shushan? Are you out of your mind? So this never happened. So this story really cannot happen in those days. But it's written anyway. So then you have to pay attention to why it's written and why it's presented as one of the books in the Bible. So Esther has an uncle, Mordechai. They are related to each other. By the way, Esther has a Jewish name that I don't know if you guys know. The Jewish name of Esther in the Bible is Hadassah. Hadassah. Anyone knows about the women of Hadassah? There's an organization of women, Jewish women, that supported Hadassah Hospital in Israel, one of the best hospitals in Israel. And so Hadassah is her Hebrew name. Esther was her Persian name. And again, Esther, it's the name of a goddess. Mordechai, Marduk, is the name of a god. So this is poking fun and destroying the theological system in Persia by, at the end, the Jews surviving, and as a result, hanging Haman and his 10 children. By the way, the end of the book is terrible. It talks about all the Jews killing hundreds of thousands of Persians. Can you imagine this really happening? But that's the wish on the part of the author of what needs to happen to a nation that is starting with anti-Semitic plots and casts a lot and tries to touch us. Beware what can happen to you. So this is a great book of feeling good. You know what? You need to have some books that make you feel good, especially if you are raised in a world that is looking for reasons to destroy the Jews. That's basically the story. And as a result, we have Hamantaschen. What's Hamantaschen? Do you know what Hamantaschen?
Yes, that was the favorite part of the lesson.
The food, the triangle, those are cookies filled with dough and also man. I like it with chocolate. There's a deli in Baltimore, Maryland, that makes those Hamantaschen that are in the shape of Haman's ear. So Haman's was pretty ugly, and his ears were triangle, and they're filled with man, prune, all kind of delicious stuff. And we eat this. We eat Haman's ears on Purim. There is also something deeper in the story that you need to know. He was from what tribe? It's in the book. You'll see he was Agagites. Who are the Agagites? There is a tribe, Amalek, the tribe of Amalek, that we Jews are told in the Bible that we need to diminish, destroy. So you maybe don't remember the story, but when the Israelites left Egypt, there was a tribe that attacked them on the way to the promised land, and the name of the tribe was Amalek. And so there is a commandment in Judaism to destroy the memory of Amalek. So guess what? Haman, wow, what an interesting connection. Haman is immediately attached to that tribe, and therefore he needs to die. By the way, it's interesting that Yasser Arafat, remember him? In order to present an ugly terrorist image, and he was a terrorist, Jewish texts in the days that when he was alive refer to him as he is from the same tribe, Amalek. Hitler, there was no connection between Hitler and that tribe, but in Jewish texts we assign Hitler to Amalek. It's good when you put a connection like this, then the enemy is so clear appears. So Amalek was a terrible tribe that attacked the old people and the women and children when they walked. And for this, by the way, King Saul, he was a Benjamite. Mordechai is a Benjamite. So the story of King Saul and Amalek and Agag, the king Agag, repeats itself in the book of Esther. So there's a whole different layer of creating a connection between the story of King Saul and his enemy. He, by the way, failed because the prophet Samuel told him to kill everyone from that tribe, and he spared the king. And for this, King Saul was replaced with David. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. So commentary suggests that the book of Esther is the repetition of the struggle between Saul and Agag, and it's a different version. So in every generation there is someone that comes to annihilate you. You have to be awake. You have to pay attention. By the way, that's how Jews are growing up. I'm talking about the old generation. I said this few times. I don't know of any old Jew that sleeps at night with two eyes closed. Why was it difficulty for me to convince my people about the tri-faith? Why would they accept that? Think. We forgot everything that the Christians did to us. We are best friends with Christians. Whoa, Rabbi, we can just do two faiths. Forget about tri-faith. I had to teach them, and sometimes I succeeded, sometimes I failed. Why we need to treat Muslims in the same way we finally treated Christians. We have text in Judaism that was written after the Bible that condemns children, Christian, that doesn't allow us. What is the purpose of kosher wine? Why do we have to have kosher wine? Why do you think kosher wine was created? And the obligation to drink kosher wine. Why? Because what you do with wine, you go to parties. You're going to have one day Christians in the party. You're going to sit with Christians? So you create kosher wine for what purpose? For separation. For being able to... This was the original ideas. It sounds terrible when I talk about this. But we didn't trust Christians. They gave us good reasons not to trust them. And it starts with one of our boys, Jesus. Christians need to always be grateful for Jesus for being Jewish. It took so long to open the door to teach Jesus from a Jewish point of view. I know that's what you want me to do one day. Yeah. We matured, Jews matured, we are not afraid. But now, Rabbi, Muslims, Middle East, are you out of your mind? I already got a call this morning. Did you hear what happened in London? From a person that is still fighting me about the tri-faith. So the reason he called is not to convey sadness about the death or the injury or what happened. It's about warning me. Okay. I was polite. You guys are going to hear the same. Okay. So that's basically Esther here. And now look at the Jewish material first, before we go to the Apocrypha. The one that says it starts in the days of Mordechai and Esther. So just to share with you, those men that you constantly are attacking for writing the Bible still had women in their mind. They didn't have a choice. They were all married. So, can you read the first paragraph, please? 12.
Okay, in the verse, for the leader upon the hind of the dawn.
Remember how they do? They give you a verse from Psalms, and you'll see how it gets to the book of Esther. Go on.
Scripture speaks of the generation of Mordecai and Esther, a time that was more dark than the night. For though it is night, one has the light of the moon, the stars, and the planets. Then when is it really dark?
What an interesting question. Time of darkness. When is it really dark? Because night is not completely dark. So they'll have a discussion now to talk to you about darkness. Continue.
Just before dawn, after the moon sets and the stars set and the planets vanish, there is no darkness deeper than the hour before dawn. And in that hour, the Holy One answers the world and all that is in it. Out of the darkness, he brings forth the dawn and gives light to the world.
Wow. By the way, what about, we have in Judaism and Christianity, there is a teaching about praying to God at 12 o'clock at night. Sunrise, don't you have Easter? There is a time that God is closer to the earth, and that's a time to hit him with requests and petitions when it's dark. But we're not talking about darkness, just the darkness. darkness inside of us when we need to find a moment of praying to God because God is going to listen to us. So this, it mentioned Mordechai and Esther and how dark was the period in Persia. Next one, 13. Please. Yes.
Rabbi Judah Bar Simon taught, you find that when a house in which a snake nests is fumigated with hind's horn or a woman's hair, the snake immediately flees. So too, Deborah and Esther were as effective as a hind's horn. For Deborah did not budge until she destroyed Sisera and his hosts. And Esther did not budge until she got Haman and his 10 sons hanged.
Yeah, I mean, those they love those women. Look at, if you want to fumigate a house, get a hair of a woman.
Spring cleaning.
But of course, it's, yeah, spring cleaning. Nice. This is what commentary does. Yeah, spring cleaning. Every time we think about spring cleaning, we think about Esther now. Or not. Next one, 14.
His disciples asked Rabbi Simeon ben
Yochai.
Why was Israel of that generation deemed to deserve extermination?
Yeah, why that generation needed to be exterminated by Haman? Go on.
He said to them, you tell me. They replied, because Israel relished the feast of that wicked one. He said, if so, the Jews in Susa should have been condemned to die, but not those in the rest of the world. The
students. Go on.
You tell us then. He, because they bowed down to the graven image. They, was there a show of favor toward them on God's part in this matter? He, no, since they only pretended to worship the graven image. God only pretended that he was about to exterminate them.
I mean, come on, how can you... It's beautiful. I mean, first of all, you learn about worshiping graven images, I mean, the prohibition, and then a little bit of sense of humor here. So what do you know now from the book of Esther? That it's maybe it was a play that was played. Never happened. Maybe there's more important for people to realize that there are forces out there that are dark forces that one needs to watch. Judaism from the beginning was known to be small. We knew from the beginning that we are not going to have millions and millions of worshipers. We grew up knowing that this will be a small group of people from the beginning. And that's how we are. So we have a mentality of minority. So sometimes it made us be afraid of everyone. We have some terrible jokes that we tell each other about Gentiles or about non-Jews. Part of it is coming from a reality that was there, and some of it's coming from overly being suspicious and understanding history. And I think this is what the tri-faith is all about, I think. Tri-faith is the ability to, this taking a deep breath, and we don't have to play those games again of the past. We need to open ourselves and to be able to discover what's unique about each one of us. The tri-faith has in it a healing power that I don't think we are realizing yet. I grew up in Israel, and so I grew up with the theology that everyone is against us. Everyone is against us. When you're sitting in the midst of 400 million Arabs, and they're trying constantly to destroy or to have a war, and some of the wars we initiated, some of the wars they initiated, but it was all about survival. You grow up with, no one wants me, no one needs me. And so this is something that affects everything. If you get up in the morning, and that's what your way of thinking is, And you have to look behind. In Israel, for example, I always sat with my face to the door of a restaurant because you never know who is going to come. By the way, it is possible one day we'll have to do it here too. Is the person who is coming with a long coat in the middle of the summer? What's going on? I'm just giving you some of the way we are raised. It's so far away. When was the last time you purposefully sat in a restaurant with a face to the door? Are you kidding? You see where she puts you. Oh, he. Try it. Now I'm going to raise this suspicion here. Next time when you go, sit across the way from the door of the restaurant. It's a whole different way of living. Next one, let's do 17. Who would like to read 17?
I will.
Yeah, please.
According to every man's wish, the Holy One said.
Okay, so the book of Esther has a verse. The king is saying to the people, you can drink according to everyone's wish. I told you, he had a headache all the time. Wine is overflowing in the book of Esther. Go on.
O wicked one, if two men wish to marry the same woman, can she possibly wed both? If two ships are sailing on the great Mediterranean Sea, one seeking a southerly wind and the other a northerly wind, can the same wind drive both of them? Tomorrow, two men, Mordecai and Haman, will come to you. Do you think you can possibly satisfy both, as you might if there was only one? You will have no choice but to exalt one and hang the other.
Yeah. The same God, you have different verdicts. The two ships cannot sail with the same wind behind them. They go different directions. Yeah, so don't be surprised if some of us from time to time are getting the wrong wind behind us. Yeah.
I think it's ironic that in athletics, the teams sometimes pray, and what you hear is, I'm praying that we'll win. And
I'm praying for the other to lose. Yeah, totally. Yeah. God is mysterious. We'll never know exactly what wind is pushing us at what time. But there's always God there for us. Okay, the next one is very long. There are it's again rewriting. So this material can be found in the Apocrypha. Some material that is here cannot be found there. So maybe that's in other materials that we don't have the information of. The only thing I highlighted here is in the middle of the second paragraph, then as soon as Mordecai finished praying, Haman said to him, "Rise up, righteous Mordecai, descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Mordecai, when he hears about the verdict of the lot, he puts a sackcloth and ashes on his head and prays a lot. And Mordecai replied to Haman, "Wicked one, son of the seed of Amalek." So I wanted to stress this Amalek. This is the vicious tribe that killed the people who left Egypt when they were walking in the desert, being very tired. Then the next page has a little bit more of the story of the hanging. So this is material that you can read on your own. You have a week now before the next sermon. So what else are you going to do this week? You prepare for the sermon, so then you can raise your hand and ask penetrating questions. Go to 154, which is the next page. Who would like to read this? 154.
Oh,
Yeah, please.
what page? Once, while Rabbi Akiva was in the teacher's chair expounding scripture, the assembly became drowsy.
Isn't it wonderful? So he's sitting in the teacher's chair, something like this here, this chair, but they fall asleep like every time we preach. Anyway, go on.
Wishing to stir them awake, he said, "Why did Esther think she deserved to rule 127 provinces?" Because, Rabbi Akiva suggested, Esther, being a descendant of Sarah, who lived 127 years.
Wow. So, I mean, who gives Esther the knowledge or the permission to become a queen over 127 different countries? Ah, Sarah. What a beautiful connection. You connect Sarah to Esther. All those women needs to be viewed, yes, as separate, different characters, but also there is a leitmotif running through all those characters. Go on.
That's Esther, being a descendant of Sarah, who lived 127 years, thought that she should come and rule 127 provinces.
Yeah, what a chutzpah on the part of Esther. Who she thinks she is? Oh, she got those credentials from Sarah. There's a connection between those mothers. 428. Please, anyone?
Add down these words.
So this comes a verse from Proverbs, but they're going to use it with Esther. God, we
have been taught that he...
Rabbi Eliezer, the R always stands for Rabbi.
Okay. Esther was composed by inspiration of the Holy Spirit.
Oh my God, she never existed. So what is Esther? You see, I'm suggesting that Esther the book is so many things and more. So here, the teaching of the Rabbi is what? That she is composed of the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. Go on.
Rabbi Akiva said, Esther,
And the proof text is, and Haman,
excuse me.
it's line number 4.
Esther was confused. Yeah, was composed by inspiration of the Holy Spirit. For the scripture states, and Esther...
No, and Haman.
Okay, I am just...
I know. I'm sorry, it's too small. I'll try to enlarge those letters next time. But more enlarged letters require more pages. And I'm trying to save the world. So, I will finish it. So there's a verse in the book of Esther that says, and Haman said it in his heart. Which means what? That the story never existed. He said it to his heart. When we read the Apocrypha, we see that Mordechai had a dream. So, go on. So I'll continue. Rabbi Akiva said, Esther was composed by inspiration of the Holy Spirit, for scripture states, and Esther obtained favor in the eyes of all that look upon her. So she's a composite of people that looked upon her in imagination, creating in their imagination. Rabbi Meir said Esther was composed by inspiration of the Holy Spirit, and the proof text, and the thing became known into Mordechai. The thing became known. So it's not really a live character. Those are things that are known to Mordechai. We don't know how it was known. So everyone is basically suggesting that she never existed physically. She existed in the mind of people, and she's a composite of their thoughts and their wishes and their needs.
Or was that rationalization saying a woman couldn't really do all this?
It is possible, yeah, that's nice.
She's got to be mythical.
Do you always have to be yourself? What's wrong with you? Okay. Totally. I mean, of course, because, I mean, that's the only book that is the book of Ruth also. So we have Ruth, which is the week after. So you have Esther this coming Sunday and Ruth the week after. So the next Monday it will be only about the book of Ruth. And, you know, what else you have? What other names, how other women's names appear in the book? To have a book with a woman's name? Whoa. By the way, the same question is asked about the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments appear in the Bible in the Torah portion named Jethro. Wow, Jethro was not a Jew. Jethro was the father-in-law of Moses. He was worshiping other gods. But the honor of putting the Ten Commandments in the Torah portion named after Jethro. So the Ten Commandments were not given just to the Jews. They were given to all of us. And Jethro symbolizes all of us. So they look at the next 429, the next one, the top of the next, please.
When Esther sent word to the
Yeah, Esther sent word to the sages. By the way, what's strange about that sentence? I mean, how can Esther send a word to the sages that lived hundreds of years after her, if she ever existed? What a beautiful way of having a dialogue with the sages. What am I doing in your scriptures? Why are you putting me there, or whatever? So, this is what we are taught when we study Torah. You put your ear into the text and you have a conversation with the generations that came before us. That's how we are trained. We as rabbis are trained to have those kind of conversations with the text, as if the text just happened to us. And that's how you make it alive. Back to your question. I mean, the death of religion will happen when the dialogue stops with a sacred text. And that's why the need for having a sacred text to continue the dialogue, but not to be frozen there. And not everyone can do it. Not everyone is willing to do it. It's scary. It's absolutely scary. But it's needed if we want to keep Christianity, Judaism, Islam alive. It was interesting how long last night they concentrated in telling us that the mosque changed leadership. Did you hear? Oh, so they know the history of the mosque, and the mosque 10 years ago produced the shoe bomber. The shoe bomber, remember that?
Yeah.
Came from that mosque.
Oh, no.
But for the last 10 years, a whole evolution happened. They brought the right imams, the right leadership, and they have been constantly involved in the life of London. And the mayor of London came from that mosque.
Oh.
Can you imagine a mayor, a Muslim mayor for London? So they concentrated on talking about this for their own reasons on the TV news. But it's an interesting piece. So Esther is in conversation with the sages. She's saying what?
Set my book down in writing for the generations to come.
She is insisting on the part of the sages, put my book in the Bible. Make it relevant. She's participating in that conversation. Go on. They replied,
They replied, have I not written the 3 parts, Proverbs, and 3 parts, the 5 books, the prophets, and the writings, not 4? They finally found support for what she requested in the verse, write this, the war against Amalek, a memorial in a scroll.
okay, so now why is the book accepted? They had the 3 sections of the Bible. They thought it's enough. But they found a reason to accept the book of Esther. Why? Because it's written in Exodus that you should write about the war against Amalek, this evil tribe, in the scroll. So that gave them permission to include the book of Esther, because the book of Esther is all about how to treat a vicious tribe. This revenge. You know, it's not about turn the other cheek. They are evil people that will follow Jewish history that sometimes you need to fight. Amalek is one of them. So the book was accepted. So what is interesting here? You can hear the discussion between the rabbis. Should we put the book in the Bible or not? There was a discussion. Esther, so to speak, from the past, suddenly came into the conversation and said, you better put the book there because it talks about how we are treated when we left Egypt. We need to have evidence. We need to have some testimony for that. You better include my book. Women liberation. Getting involved. Can you imagine how the rabbis reacted? They're sitting around the table. I'm sure they all died when Esther appeared. Can you imagine, by the way, can you imagine Moses or Jesus or Muhammad coming to board meetings of this church or Temple Israel? I mean, so Esther got her voice. Continue. Rabbi Judah
Said in the name of Samuel, the scroll of Esther does not leave the hands of the queen. But did not Samuel say that Esther was composed by inspiration of the Holy Spirit? Composed to be read as Holy Writ, but its written text is not regarded as holy.
Okay, so here's a discussion. Again, the discussion is all coming from what? The fact that God is not mentioned. So, is it a holy book if God is not mentioned? It's a great discussion. You know, yes, they included it because they felt, although you are not required to wash hands, which is interesting. There are all the books in the Bible. If you read the books, you have to wash your hands before you read them. That's edict from those rabbis. That book, you don't have to wash the hands, but it still is inside the Jewish Bible because of the story about the actions of one woman and one man.
Is it the only book you don't have to wash your hands?
Yeah. All the rest of the books have God. So this is the debate. You just witness the debate to include the book or not. And this is only one book we talked about. Can you imagine the other discussions about the rest of the books? I'm sure there was no conversation about Exodus, Leviticus, and all those kind. Although the book of Leviticus, it's written by a whole. One day, hopefully, there was a time for this group to study who wrote the Bible. It's a great book. You need to get. It's a soft-cover book. That was the book I asked the people in UNO my students to read. It's all the theory of the different manuscripts. So in front of the table there was a J manuscript, a P manuscript, a E manuscript, and they had to be reconciled. And what we have is the reconciliation between the different texts that provided the Jewish Bible. The P is the priestly. The book of Leviticus. What is the book of Leviticus doing in the Bible?
Setting out the rules.
A what?
Setting out the rules.
Yeah, the rules, but it also talks about the power of the priestly cult in determining things, and so it was relevant to put it there for all kind of reasons. But it's all about the people who hate the book of Leviticus are all my bar mitzvah kids. Because some of the chapters, what do you do with leprosy? Oh, I have a great Shabbat for my bar mitzvah. I have the chapter on leprosy. What am I going to do with leprosy as a speech? Well, we always find out something for the kid to talk about. Because it's not only leprosy, it's gossip. So the word for leprosy in Hebrew is metzorah, and in Hebrew, motzira is someone who gossips. So that's how the child who is 13 and still have milk coming from his lips is capable of talking about evil speaking. Because it's not about leprosy alone. It has a different meaning that was discovered by the commentators. Okay, so this is a little bit about the struggle for the book of Esther to enter into the Bible. Now, look at the third material. So, you can, if you have a pen, write down it's Esther. So this is the Apocrypha on the book of Esther. I gave you a majority of the text. There's more text about in the Apocrypha about the book of Esther. So, who would like to read just to show you how it starts? Anyone? Yes, please.
In the second year of the reign of Axtarixes.
So this is how you write it in Latin, and his name is Ahasuerus. Remember, Ahasuerus in Hebrew means the one who has a constant headache. The drunken, but his official name is exactly there. Go on.
The Great. On the first day of Nisan, Mordecai, son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, of the tribe of Benjamin, had a dream.
That's it, guys. Forget about the book of Esther. No, so the Apocrypha appears as it was a dream. Okay, so that's how they see it. By the way, here it's so important to see where Mordecai, what's the origin of Mordecai? Mordecai is the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish. Kish is also the father of King Saul. So there's a connection here, and he is from the tribe of Benjamin. So Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. Already the connection of why this is written. Okay? And so, go on, he was a Jew.
He was a Jew living in the city of Susa.
Or Shushan. In the book of Esther is the Shushan, go on.
A great man, serving in the court of the king. He was one of the captives whom King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had brought from Jerusalem with King Jeconiah of Judea, and this was his dream.
Yeah, in case you forgot, it's a dream, okay? Second time mentioning it. By the way, now you know, so this is a story that happened after what? After the first destruction of the temple, when the first exile went out to Babylonia. Okay, so continue, please.
Noises and confusion, thunders and earthquake, tumult on the earth. Then two great dragons came forward, both ready to fight, and they roared terribly. At their roaring, every nation prepared for war, to fight against the righteous nation. It was a day of darkness and gloom.
Okay, stop. Why was the book not, why is this material not accepted? What's going on here?
Dragons?
Yeah, dragons, I mean, come on, this is something our kids will play now. Dragons, roar, I mean, by the way, dragons and big fish exist remnants in the in the creation story. I mean, there are remnants of some of this. So some of this is coming from legends and stories that need to be rejected. Why rejected? Because in a world where God exists, there are no dragons. God is in control.
But you could apply this to today, and the two great dragons could be certain leaders in the world who are coming together or fighting against you. I mean, you look at this.
You're writing your own midrash now. That's beautiful. You see what? This is exactly how midrashic material is created. You look at a text and you create stories.
But you look at this, roaring, these two great dragons, two leaders. I could name one of them, but like, he is the man that shall not be named. And every nation prepared for war. I mean, this is.
I think you should take some medicine when you come. Before you come. What are you talking about? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know you are. I know you are. That's why I still like.
No, but you're
I took my medicine before.
But
I did. I took my health.
But you're dangerous. You're dangerous. You're dangerous in a sense that you can lead us completely astray from the holy text.
I do that a lot.
No, but I'm saying this is what the discussion will be around the table, including or not including text. How is this fitting our theology? So the question that was always asked, is this supporting the theology that we want to convey to our people, or are we opening the door for people to start thinking about dragons and things that are outside of God's realm. That's the danger. And that's why it's outside of the Bible. That's why it's in the Apocrypha. Thank God we kept it. Because this helps us to understand why they strayed away from this material. What was the purpose of them selecting what they selected in those books? You'll see how this develops also. Continue a little bit more.
It was a day of darkness and gloom, of tribulation and distress, affliction and great tumult on the earth. And the whole righteous nation was troubled. They feared the evils that threatened them and were ready to perish. Then they cried out to God.
Okay. God is here. God is in the book of Esther now. So they need to create a chaos in the world. Basically, it's like Genesis. And the world was completely chaotic. And God appears and said, let there be light. I mean, so similar to the language of Genesis in the beginning. Okay, continue.
Then they cried out to God, and at their outcry, as though from a tiny spring, there came a great river with abundant water. Light came, and the sun rose, and the lowly were exalted, and devoured those held in honor. That's Genesis. So a different story exists in Persia. This is a story maybe that written by a Persian. But we don't know exactly who is the author. Where's the story coming from? Continue. Mordecai.
Mordecai saw in this dream what God had determined to do. And after he awoke, he had it on his mind, seeking all day to understand it in every detail.
So Mordecai saw in his dream what God had determined to do. So the book of Esther is about what? God's action. What God determined to do. Then goes pretty much, follows the story from the book of Esther about the banquet, about Haman. So that's edition A. So that's one piece about Esther. So they found other material about Esther. So that's how they call edition B and edition, I think I have C, and I think one more, F. I don't have any other editions. I'm sure there's other editions, maybe other parts. They're not in the material that I saw. It'll be interesting to discover other editions. Now comes, look at edition B. Edition B starts how?
This is a copy of the letter.
This is a copy of the letter that Haman sent to all the nations, telling them about the Jews. So please read this.
The great king Ahasuerus
Yeah.
writes the following to the governors of the 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia and to the officials under them. Having become ruler of many nations and master of the whole world, not elated with presumption of authority, but always acting reasonably and with kindness, I have to...
That's, by the way, in the letter. Yeah, go on.
I have determined to settle the lives of my subjects in lasting tranquility and in order to make my kingdom peaceable and open to travel throughout all its extent, to restore the peace desired by all people.
Well, that's very nice on his part. What is bothering him now? What will be the rest of the letter?
He's suggesting a travel ban.
No, he's suggesting to extinguish the Jews. The Jews are the reason why my kingdom is not tranquil. By the way, how is this different from the rest of Jewish history? What is about the need on the part of different rulers to get rid of all of us? I mean, how many are we? Why are we causing such a turmoil to so many people? What is it about us that people hate us?
When did the idea that the Jewish faith would be a small minority begin? Was it when...
It's written in the Bible that we are a holy nation, but it's going to be a small nation. Already from the beginning of the inception of who we are, we knew that. It's interesting.
Israel gets a big nation.
Well, Abraham was promised what? but there is also prophecy on the part of the prophets that one day all the nations are going to go up to the mountain of the Lord in Jerusalem and receive. So the issue of the smallness, but a mighty power that small group has. And what is our mission? What is the mission of this small group of people in the world? I have to sell that to my Jews. They're astonished when I tell them that they have a job to do. They're in shock. Yes, you guys need to spread yourself. You guys need to be witness to God's existence. Your job is to say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." Oh, do we really need to do it? They're so afraid of, which you guys are great because you're telling my Jews that they're the chosen people. They don't believe it. From time to time, my Jews pray that maybe God will choose some other people for a change. With this kind of history, who wants to be chosen? It's a larger conversation.
Does part of the reason that you are a small group, is it because you don't go out and proselytize, you don't try to bring people in?
What do you think I'm doing now, this morning? You see, I realized that this is a huge mistake. That's why I got involved in interfaith marriages. I got involved in, we're involved in conversion. So I look at my 28 years of working as a rabbi. Okay, so I met maybe, 100 new people, Jews. If I continue with this speed, I'll have 200. No, I think the reason why we were not doing it because they killed us. Would I knock on the door in 1942 in Berlin and say to someone, "Hey, I have an idea for you. Be a Jew." Oh yeah, definitely. I think the tri-faith is a beginning of changing the minds of the Jews about who they are. And hopefully we're going to play it the way we envision it. The fact that I retired means that I have a lot more time to think about tri-faith, and it's so dangerous.
But I was just thinking, there was a time, and maybe still is somewhat, when if a Jew married out of the faith, were they seen as dead?
Oh, totally dead. There's a shiva for that. People mourn. People put ashes and black clothes and said as if that person died. There was, I will say, there was about 40 years ago. They don't do it anymore. A Jew also, we have non-Jews buried in our cemetery. There was a time, when this was difficult for a couple that is interfaith marriage to be buried in Jewish Orthodox cemeteries. It's still, there are no non-Jews in Orthodox cemeteries. I always believe that it's good to bury non-Jews in Jewish cemeteries for peaceful reasons. What? Yeah. It's in Hebrew it says Darkei Shalom, for the way of peace. So it's a teaching in Judaism. So there were times that there was an active conversion in Judaism, but only very short time, very short periods. For example, definitely in Spain, during the Golden Age in Spain, Jews got more freedom, and there were conversations about this. You have some amazing examples from Brazil coming now, where the first 22 Jews that came to America were people that came on a boat from Brazil with the Columbus mission. So we also believe that Columbus was Jewish. Everyone that we like is Jewish. So Columbus definitely was a Jew because this was part of the movement after the Inquisition. When the boats went out, those 3 boats.
Out of Spain.
Yeah, when? What year? 19... Yeah. So what happened a little bit before that? The exile of Isabel and Ferdinand from Spain, and then a little bit later Portugal. So all of those were Jews on the boats. So thank God for the Inquisition. We have America. Back to the text, because we need to know what kind of a letter he sent. So continue reading it. When I asked my counselors,
Was I reading?
yeah, you're good. Read.
When I asked my counselors how this might be accomplished, Haman, who excels among us in sound judgment and is distinguished for his unchanging goodwill and steadfast fidelity, and has attained the 2nd place in the kingdom, pointed out to us that among all the nations in the world there is scattered a certain hostile people who have laws contrary to those of every nation and continually disregard the ordinances of kings, so that the unifying of the kingdom that we honorably intend cannot be brought about.
What a beautiful written letter, isn't it? But it's not in the book of Esther. In the book of Esther, it says that he sent a letter. We don't know the text. Wow, now we know the text. Go on.
We understand that this people, and it alone, stands constantly in opposition to every nation, perversely following a strange manner of life and laws, and is ill-disposed to our government, doing all the harm they can do so that our kingdom may not attain stability.
By the way, similar letters are written by white supremacists about us. It's the same language. This is written very well. So you know the person who wrote this edition in Apocrypha was a good writer. That material did not make it to the book of Esther. Why? Why would anyone, I mean, it's abbreviated in the book of Esther, you'll see this, but why would anyone include this kind of a terrible material in the Bible that is produced by Jewish sages? Okay, so, wow. Words have power. Go on, therefore we have
decreed that those indicated to you in the letters written by Haman, who is in charge of affairs and is our 2nd father.
Wow, our 2nd father. Go on.
Shall all, wives and children included, be utterly destroyed by the swords of their enemies, without pity or restraint, on the 14th day of the 12th month.
Wow. What is different in the book of Esther? In the book of Esther, there is a lot cast, and the lot determined that the Jews are going to be killed. It's a whole different level of viciousness. A lot casting a lot, you know, like playing a lottery, and the lot fell on the Jews. Here, there is a serious condemnation and annihilation and reasoning why to a greater level. So it's not a lot. Which means what? That again, the book of Esther, maybe it's just a Purim play. Maybe the whole reason was just to create a play because we wanted to get our anxieties out. And that's how we have costumes. I mean, why would we have costumes? If you read the book of Esther, why would you come up with a holiday that you put costumes on? So you have a feeling that from the beginning it was treated as what? As a dream, as a play, as something maybe that never happened, but it's there for us to maybe take revenge, even in our imagination. I mean, creating a play that takes our anxieties out, but living it as a play. Continue.
On the 14th day of the 12th month, Adar, of this present year, so that those who have long been hostile and remain so may in a single day go down in violence to Hades and leave our government completely secure and untroubled hereafter.
Okay, and then read the next 2 lines. That's edition C.
Then Mordecai prayed to the Lord, calling to remembrance all the works of the Lord. He said,
Now comes Mordecai prayer. We just read the letter from the king about Haman, or maybe Haman wrote it, second father, interesting phrase. And then comes,
he said, O Lord, Lord, you rule as king over all things, for the universe is in your power, and there is no one who can oppose you when it is your will to save Israel. For you have made heaven and earth and every wonderful thing under heaven. You are Lord of all, and there is no one who can resist you.
I wish this material was in the book of Esther instead of what we have there. Look how beautiful the writing is, and how beautiful God is invited into the book of Esther. So you have a book in the Bible that doesn't mention God, and you have Apocrypha that constantly talking about God. Go on.
You are Lord of all, and there is no one who can resist you, the Lord. You know all things. You know, O Lord, that it was not in insolence or pride, or for any love of glory that I did this, and refused to bow down to this proud Haman.
Haman gets upset because Mordecai doesn't bow down. Go on.
For I would have been willing to kiss the soles of his feet to save Israel. But I did this so that I might not set human glory above the glory of God.
Oh, beautiful. I don't want to set up human glory above the glory of God. There is no more religious document so deeply in love with the relationship with God. And it's not in the book of Esther. So you ask, now you understand why the discussion. This material was on the table with the book of Esther. The same, I totally believe that this material was there on the table. And they read all this, and they decided to do what? Yeah. Forget about God. We need to have a book. I'm trying to understand the arguments on the table. I mean, I hear so much noise. Can you imagine how long that meeting on the book of Esther took? Just the book of Esther. By the way, there were discussion about the book of Song of Songs. Song of Songs is you better wash your hands. What is the problem with the Song of Songs? What's the book about? Ooh, we need to read the book of Song of Songs. Love, sex, trio. I mean, it's the shepherd, the king, and the woman, and a lover. And so what did we do with Song of Songs?
We said it was about loving.
Yeah, forget about sex. Rabbi Akiva, who was the head also around the table, said it's the holiest books in the entire Bible, Song of Songs, because it's about love, pure love. And in order to allow both for the church and for Judaism to enter the book in, no, it's not about love. It's about the relationship between God and the people of Israel. So, can you imagine that discussion? Yeah, okay. So you get a taste, yeah.
So the Esther Apocrypha, you think dates about the same time?
Yeah, totally. That's what they say in the introduction. Those 3 volumes are with scholarly writings before that introduce each of the Apocrypha. I think it's, I don't know, a few $100. Hopefully it will be on a CD-ROM we can put in. But it's a delicious, juicy material. And I'm just giving you the relationship to some Jewish books. But there is stuff there that is earlier than some of the Gospels. So there's also, that's the difficulty is knowing who wrote what. And that's why it was kept out there. In addition to voting about what goes in. Go on.
I will not bow down to anyone but you, who are my Lord, and I will not do these things in pride. And now, O Lord God and King, God of Abraham, spare your people, for the eyes of our foes are upon us to annihilate us, and they desire to destroy the inheritance that has been yours from the beginning. Do not neglect your portion, which you redeemed for yourself out of the land of Egypt. Hear my prayer and have mercy upon your inheritance.
Okay, stop here. And Mordecai is not the only one praying. Look at Esther and we'll finish with this. Then Queen Esther, continue, you're already there. The next,
You want me to start with Queen Esther?
Yeah.
Okay. Then Queen Esther, seized with deadly anxiety, fled to the Lord. She took off her...
she fled to the Lord. Go on.
So she took off her splendid apparel and put on the garments of distress and mourning, and instead of costly perfume, she covered her head...
Instead of costly perfume, Chanel 5. So, because she's constantly worried about perfumes, she's with a king, and she needs to present herself. Go on.
She covered her head with ashes and dung, and she utterly humbled her body. Every part that she loved to adorn, she covered with her tangled hair.
And now go to line 17.
And now we have sinned before you, and you have handed us over to our enemies, because we glorified their gods.
Okay, enough. So, why is the story there according to this text? This is a punishment for glorifying other gods. They are sitting in Persia, and they assimilate, like we all assimilate when we are in the wrong place. By the way, one can assimilate even in Omaha, Nebraska. It's very easy to forget the difference between the glory of man and the glory of God. We can be still sinners, even in our comfortable worship homes. So assimilation was rampant. They were in Persia, they were ruled by other people, and that's part of the reason why the book of Esther is there, to remind us that in the midst of this chaos, we need to continue being loyal to our God. Thank you. Next week, the book of Ruth. By the way, you can surprise all of us and read the book of Ruth in advance.
Rabbi,
Just a second. Yes.
when did you come to the United States?
I came to work in a summer camp in 1973
The one
in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin? Okay, in 1973. And you stayed here after
No,
that?
I went back to Israel. And then came a year later to continue working in Chicago. So from